Hi there YouTube, it's Kevin here and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, this isn't typically what I do, but it's part of kind of what I'm pushing for March, so if you enjoy the content, like and subscribe, feel free to stick around. But anyways, without further ado, today I'm going to bring you guys my 5 tips on how to afford hype items. And, you know, generally speaking, this is what's worked for me, so yeah, let's get into it. Tip number 1. Have a job or a steady state income. And what this means is that you always have money flowing in so that you can use it to, you know, cover your basic necessities and then save towards a hype item. It's a very simple concept, but to put it into perspective for you guys, over the summer I had a job as like an intern for a pretty big company, and as I was working there, I always got like paychecks every 2 weeks, and being able to see those paychecks actually really helped me budget and afford hype items. Tip number 2, be a god at budgeting. So budgeting is super important, not just for like being able to afford hype items, but being able to get places in life. And so if you can't manage your money or your finances, you're probably going to be a lot crankier, complain a lot more compared to other people. But budgeting is important just because you need to know what your limits are in terms of monetary boundaries, what you cannot buy, what you should and should not buy, etc, etc. So I'll just kind of leave general tips and kind of give you guys an idea of what I'm doing on this front, I suppose. So when it comes to budgeting, I look at it from necessities and non-necessities point of view, and anything that's a non-necessity I can flex and like work with, and anything that's a necessity is a fixed cost that, you know, you're not allowed to touch that money. You have to put it aside. So for me, necessities are rent and utilities, and anything else is fair game. Why did I not include food? It's a basic human necessity. Well, you see, compared to a lot of my college counterparts here at university, people spend really extravagantly on food and they don't really know it. Like if they go out to drink, like if they, you know, like eat out very frequently, etc, etc. To put it in perspective, I've kind of flexed around my food intake, etc, etc. I mean, you get the point. But to the point where I'm spending probably around 10, maybe a little more, maybe a little less than $10 on all my meals today. And if you can put that in perspective, if you ate out at Burger King and got like a Whopper meal every day, it's probably around $7. So I'm probably having the amount that you'd spend typically on 3 meals in a day. And with that, I get a lot more value. Like the $10 I didn't spend can be saved and put towards hype items. So the power of budgeting is really being able to see what things do you have control over and how exactly you use these things to your advantage to save towards a common goal. Tip number 3. Understand risk. And I think understanding risk is a very important concept to understand. Oh man, that sounds really weird. But anyways, understand risk to afford hype items. Why do I say this? Because if you end up not liking an item in the future, or if you buy something and didn't turn out for the better, like maybe it's a wrong size or you have to return it, etc, etc, know what you're getting yourself into. And like, for example, there are like a lot of items that I've bought and I've actually sold for resale, even though I like worn it once for like a review, just because I turned out that I didn't really like it. But I can do that because I understood the risk of buying the item in the first place, and the ability to flip it was relatively easy. The moral of this tip is generally just know what you can resell even if you use it, and un-DS it. So understand risk. Tip number 4, have hobbies that don't neg you. And when I say having hobbies that don't neg you, I really mean it. Because some hobbies out there you literally just sink so much money into and you never see it surface again. And like a great example of this is the common college hobby of drinking. Like I get drinking is like a social hobby and it's good to do every now and then, but if you're doing it consistently every weekend, you're not gonna have hype items. Like, I mean, I think one of the things that I personally do to afford hype items is drink not nearly as much as my college counterparts. Like, drinking means that you're buying a liquid, which already has super markup, you're consuming the liquid, and after you spend $5 on that liquid, your $5 are gone. But for me, my college hobby generally was card games. And card games, you buy like, you know, like $20 worth of cards, and then, you know, that $20 could become $40, it could become $10, but at the end of the day, you can still sell what you have to make some of your money back. And, you know, that's also how I started getting more and more into hype items. I kind of sold a deck, and then, you know, it let me get the leeway into hype items, I suppose. So anyways, moral tip number 4 is just don't do things that literally just suck your money away. Just find hobbies that you can invest money in, and if you ever get tired of the hobby, you can just make some of your money back. Tip number 5, make friends. And I mean, like, it's a really weird tip to say, but like, if you have friends in this general space, it's a lot easier to kind of negotiate or help each other out. So, for instance, if you cop something at retail and happens to be their size and they're really interested in the piece, then maybe selling it for a little under resell will build a connection for you, so in the future, if they buy something that you want, you'd be able to, you know, be like, hey, you know, want to help me out a little bit. I say this kind of tip with a lot of caution because I don't want to make it sound really bad, because a lot of people think making friends in like hype, or like generally like the sneakerhead hype community is just like backdooring, you know, etc, etc. And I don't think that, like, I mean, obviously backdooring is a huge problem in this industry, or like not industry, but like in this like general gig. But like, I think that making friends just means that like finding your cult, or finding people that like you vibe with and are willing to be chill with helping out and hope that they can, you know, help you out. It's really about like reading people more than it is anything. I mean, I don't really have many friends in this space, so I can't really tell you guys that I have friends in the hype space, but like, it's a tip that helped me a lot when I was in the card game kind of biz or market industry, etc, etc, just because having friends helped me build decks really quickly, and the connections really generally help. The moral of making friends is generally just, there isn't just one pair of shoes in the entire world. But if you know that someone has an extra pair, you can always get that extra pair. Just think about it. Think about it. Alright, you guys, so this kind of concludes the very short video that I wanted to bring you guys. Just generally 5 tips that I wanted to give you guys on how to afford hype items. Of course, I tried to omit as much of my personal story from this just because I wanted to keep the tips as general as possible and be as helpful as possible as well. If you guys are curious of my personal story and how I ended up getting into hype culture, hype items, and how I personally started affording hype items, I can cover that in like more of a story-based video, but these are more tips for everyone in case if you're interested in being able to buy hype items. Well, thank you for tuning in. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Peace.
Fuck it, I'll stay till I'm the last one left, for one chance to say you're different than the rest.